So, you've heard the names, right? ChatGPT, Bard, Claude. Maybe you've even played around with them. Well, they're all powered by the same kind of technology, something called an LLM, or a large language model. But what does that actually mean? Let's get into it.
And this is a really important question to ask, because we're not just talking about another tech buzzword here. This is the engine that's literally changing how we do, well, pretty much everything. How we work, how we create, how we talk to each other.
Okay, so at its most basic level, an LLM is a type of AI that's been given one huge mission: get really, really good at language. I mean, we're talking about an AI that can read, write, and even chat in a way that feels incredibly human. And it can do all this for one reason: it's been trained on just an insane amount of text data.
All right, so let's just break down the name itself. Large language model. The first word there is large. What's so large about them?
Yeah, and large doesn't mean it's some giant supercomputer sitting in a warehouse. Well, it is, but that's not the point. It's about the sheer scale of the information it's dealing with. For one, the data it's trained on is just massive, like a good chunk of the entire internet. But the other part is the model itself has billions, sometimes even trillions, of what are called parameters. Now, the easiest way to think about parameters is like little knobs or dials inside the AI's brain. Each one helps it figure out the connections between words, and the more knobs it has to turn, the more subtle and complex its understanding of language becomes.
Okay, so we've established they're huge, but how does all that size and all those parameters actually, write an email for you or a poem? What is actually going on inside the machine when you type in a prompt?
And this is where it gets kind of crazy, because for all that complexity we just talked about, the fundamental job of an LLM is surprisingly simple. At its heart, it's just a prediction machine. It's always, always just asking one single question. Based on the words I've seen so far, what is the most likely word to come next?
So here's the play-by-play. When you give it text, it first chops it up into little pieces called tokens. Think of them as word fragments. Then, its brain, which is a neural network, looks at those tokens and analyzes all the patterns in the context. And finally, based on all that analysis, it makes a guess, a statistical prediction about the most probable next word. And then it just does that again and again and again, word by word, until it's built out a whole sentence or even a whole essay.
Let's take a super simple example. If you give it the phrase, "the sun rises in the LLM isn't thinking about planets or astronomy. Nope, it's just scanning its massive database of text and calculating that statistically, the word east is the most likely word to follow that sequence. That's a really key point. It's a master of patterns, not a walking encyclopedia.
And it turns out that one simple trick, just predicting the next word over and over again, when you do it with a massive model and massive data, it unlocks some abilities that are, well, frankly, mind-blowing.
I mean, think about what this simple prediction engine can do. It can take a super dense scientific paper and just boil it down to the key takeaways for you. It can translate between languages on the fly. It can write actual working computer code. It suddenly becomes this all-purpose assistant for basically any job that deals with words. And of course, you know the names making all the headlines. You've got ChatGPT from OpenAI, Bard from Google, Claude from Anthropic, Llama from Meta. Pretty much every big tech company is in a flat-out race to build the biggest and best one. This isn't just a side project, it's the main event in the tech world right now.
Okay, but it's really important to pump the brakes for a second. This stuff isn't magic, and for all the amazing things they can do, these models have some serious limitations, and we really, really need to understand what those are. And here's the number one thing to burn into your brain. LLMs do not think. They don't understand concepts like we do. They are just incredibly sophisticated pattern-matching machines, and because of that, they can sometimes just make stuff up and state it with total confidence. In the field, they call this hallucination. And beyond that, just building and training one of these things takes an absolutely bonkers amount of computer power and data. So if you're going to remember just one thing from all of this, what should it be?
Here's the best analogy hands down. Think of it as the autocomplete feature on your phone, but on a massive, almost unimaginable scale. It's like autocomplete on steroids. It's gotten so good at predicting the next word that it can now predict entire paragraphs, poems, and even functional software. But that leaves us with a really fascinating puzzle, doesn't it? If it's all just a super advanced game of guess the next word, how in the world do they seem so smart? How can they reason through logic problems or write something that feels genuinely emotional? Well, the secret sauce is all in how they're trained. And that's exactly what we're going to break down in our next explainer. See you then.